and so on and so forth. Now, this is conversation that goes on all the time. So, is Rahul Gandhi's secretary Kanish Singh, is he involved with EMAR in any way? Is there any involvement of Kanish Singh with the Commonwealth Games? Now, this kind of speculation goes on among journalists all the time. But to come back to the subject of PR, जहाँ तक नीरा राडिया का प्रश्न है, नीरा राडिया ने आखिरकार गलती क्या करी है? मुझे तो ये समझ में नहीं आ रहा, गुनाह क्या है? राजा साहब का गुनाह सबके सामने है. वो मंत्री हैं, उन्होंने शपथ ली है, उन्होंने संविधान के ऊपर शपथ ली है कि वो समाज सेवा के लिए, जनता की सेवा के लिए, देश की सेवा के लिए अपना काम करेंगे ऑनेस्टली, बगैर फियर और फेवर के. नीरा राडिया ने कोई ऐसी शपथ नहीं ली है. इसी तरह अलग अलग जितने भी लॉबीइस्ट हैं यहां पर, ये तो नीरा राडिया का नाम सामने आ रहा है, वहां पे तो पता नहीं कितने हैं, दिल्ली में बैग वाले पता नहीं कितने लोग मिलते हैं. उन्होंने किसी ने शपथ ग्रहण नहीं करी है कि वो देश की सेवा करेंगे, और देश सेवा के लिए वो सामने है. वो अपने प्रॉफिट के लिए, अपने मुनाफे के लिए, अपनी कंपनी को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए, ताकि अपने शेयर होल्डर्स के लिए ज्यादा से ज्यादा मुनाफा कमा सकें, वो लोग उसके लिए वहां पर काम कर रहे हैं. तो उनका राजा जो हैं, उन्होंने शपथ ली है कि वो देश की सेवा करेंगे. इन लोगों का नाम राजा के साथ जोड़ना और ये कहना कि ये भी गिल्टी है, ये भी गुनहगार है, मेरी समझ में नहीं आता. ये गलत है. प्रदीप बताएं.
So this has been happening from ages. I mean, you have ages, you have people at the corridors of power who barter, bargain, lobby, do the PR ship for particular companies, corporates. This has been from ages. I mean, there's nothing new about it. But this particular thing, as you're trying to say, is trying to drag Neera Radia into the entire scam. The point is, has she initiated, motivated, or defrauded the economy in such a way as to drag her into the crime, or she is the public servant, as you said, who has taken oath to defend the nation, defend the...
Or has she tried to suborn a public servant? Has she tried in any way, or has a company tried in any way to see to it that a public servant breaks the law? Is there any such evidence? Has some bribe been given? Is there anything, with regard to bribery, with regard to exchange of gifts? I don't find any evidence of that. Now, to come back to the other thing that we were talking about, let's also look at what the Prime Minister said. Let me read this out over here. The Prime Minister says, and he said this at the Hindustan Times Leadership Summit, and of course the man who was moderating was Sanjay Baru, his own old media advisor. He said, we are ready to discuss all issues in Parliament. We are not afraid of discussion. That's what the Prime Minister said. And he also said, as far as allocation of 2G spectrum is concerned, Parliament is in session. I would not like, therefore, to make any detailed statement. I can state that various aspects of this are being looked into by the respective investigating agencies in their domain of interest. That's what he says. And a director, Ms. Vidyavati in the PMO, has filed an affidavit in the Supreme Court, where they have said that Swami held back some vital information from the court which he had in his possession and did not reveal everything to the court. The Prime Minister's office had sought the opinion of the Law Ministry in May 2009 on Dr. Swami's application for sanction to prosecute Raja under the Prevention of Corruption Act. The Law Ministry replied in February 2010 that since the probe by the CBI was on, the Prime Minister need not give any sanction. The affidavit accordingly says there was no delay on the Prime Minister's part. Swami denies having received any communication from the Prime Minister's office except for the one that he got in March 2010. He said on November the 20th, 2008, he had written to the Prime Minister seeking permission to launch proceedings against Raja. Now, the funny part over here is, irrespective of whatever be the PMO's own stand on this, for the last 2 years, why did they allow Raja to continue in office? अगर सीबीआई की इंक्वायरी चल रही है पिछले 2 साल से और ए राजा वहीं पर विराजमान है जिनके खिलाफ सीबीआई की इंक्वायरी चल रही है, now I find that funny. That we should be focusing on that instead of bringing in people like Neera Radia into the entire, the entire thing. That Neera Radia and A Raja had a conversation on the telephone. So what? So what? We have conversations with people every day. But for the last 2 years, you don't take any action against Raja. You allow Raja to continue in office. You allow him to continue in office in spite of the fact that there's a CBI inquiry on against him. Now that is something which just cannot be forgiven. Pradeep.
Sir, one thing that you said, that this is one of the biggest scams in the history, Indian history, history of our country. We never seen the scams of such great and huge magnitude. Impossible to see. And one single act of corruption, 1,70,000 odd crores. I mean, just a few days back, the point is, it is not only the nation that is affected, the
Right.
entire world is watching us.
That's right.
In fact, a few days back we found that the Wall Street Journal and all these US media continuously harping and highlighting the very fact that the Supreme Court has pulled up the Prime Minister for his total silence on the subject and, for a period of 1.5 years or so. This has been highlighted across the world.
That's right.
All the major newspapers and the media are highlighting the very fact that the Prime Minister is in trouble. They're highlighting the very fact that this is one of the biggest scams affecting India, and how the Prime Minister's office is being dragged into it. How the Supreme Court has pulled up the Prime Minister. In fact, pulled a question mark over his conduct of his deemed silence. Now, so it's no longer a national issue. It's become an international issue.
Obviously,
now.
because there are so many other companies involved. If you look at it, I mean, there are people who've actually, as the Comptroller and Auditor General said, as you yourself pointed out, there are lots of companies who have been given licenses as if they were Mr. Raja's own domestic stuff to give. Who didn't even have a paid up capital of 1 lakh rupees. कहीं 1 लाख रुपए का paid up capital है, किसी का 1 करोड़ का है, किसी का 5 करोड़ का है. और सबसे बड़ी बात ये है, can we have that on please? Let's take a look at that. As far as the ROC is concerned, companies like Unitech and others did not even take permission from the registrar of companies that they wanted to include telecom in their business. Can we have that on please? The CAG chart sheet. Unitech, Allianz, Loop, Estel, Datacom, they all made false claims about, concerning various things. And apart from that, Unitech, Allianz and Loop did not even get the Registrar of Companies clearance. They didn't even get clearance from the Registrar of Companies, and they were given out licenses for various things. And RCom, that is Reliance Communications, Shyam Electronics, HFCL, they were given dual licenses. They were given dual licenses without referring back to the panel. And the UASL was given to Swan in spite of the fact that Reliance held more than 10% of Swan at that time. That's what the CAG says. Reliance, of course, denies it. They say that it had more than 10% and was actually operating in areas that Swan was said to be operating in. Now, that in itself is kind of strange. That in itself is kind of strange as far as we are concerned. Now, the funny part over here is that this is what the CAG chart sheet is, the Comptroller and Auditor General's chart sheet. Now, over here, we must remember, the Prime Minister has actually told the CAG that please distinguish between what is intentional and what is accidental. Pradeep, can you comment on that? What does he mean by that?
I would just like to draw your attention back some months back when the Prime Minister also warned the courts not to interfere into where the into the serfdom of the legislature. They said, play within your boundaries. That's what he said then, and that was one critical issue where Sharad Pawar was concerned, where agriculture was concerned, where grains were rotting out there in the godowns. No infrastructure for them. Even after independence, when we know 50 to 60% of food grains are getting destroyed, and you needed the Supreme Court to advise the cabinet and the administration that there is something really wrong. They couldn't do it on themselves. When they did, and when the Supreme Court pointed, and there was a hue and cry across the nation that what is happening about agriculture, and where the agriculture minister and all were pulled up by the Supreme Court, you had the Prime Minister telling the Supreme Court to stay in zone, don't violate or go into the other territory of legislature. I mean, that was once, and now it is again, where the Prime Minister is warning the people, warning the whistleblowers. The whistleblowers are being warned by the Prime Minister to stay within the limits of their constitution. I mean, what is this? You on your own will not do anything. Everybody has been screaming for Raja's exit, not now,
but for a long
since
time,
a year.
for a very long time. That's right.
For a long time, from months, everybody is screaming. You kept silent. The Supreme Court has pulled you up for being silent, and now you're trying to tell all these statutory authorities that don't exceed your brief.
That's right.
Stay where you are. Don't. If it is for national importance, and if something is being pointed out, it is for national importance. I mean, what prevents the Prime Minister, or what motivates him to tell the whistleblowers to stay within the limits? He should, in fact, be applauding them for bringing such a big scam to books.
That's right. He should be
showing the entire nation that these are the things that is happening, and nothing is happening about it. Everybody talks about his integrity. You talk about Subramanian Swamy. He's been defending the Prime Minister. This man is exceedingly honest. But will just being honest yourself do? Because you're sitting in the chair of a Prime Minister and you are concerned about the entire nation. and not about the cabinet ministers and the coalition partners filling their belly, filling their pockets, filling their treasuries, the private treasuries and not the treasury of the nation. Who is being affected? And these 2-3 instances we find the Prime Minister has been pulling up the whistleblowers rather than getting his acts together. The first thing he should have said, agree to the Joint Parliamentary Committee.
And today, today the Agriculture Secretary has said very, very clearly that we do not have the infrastructure to store grain. It says so very, very clearly. जहाँ तक के कृषि का प्रश्न है, आज सबसे पहली बार सरकार की तरफ से एडमिशन आया है कि भाई हमारे पास स्ट्रक्चर ही नहीं है. We don't have the infrastructure, हमारे पास फैसिलिटीज नहीं है ताकि हम ग्रेन को स्टोर कर सके. और जो उच्चतम न्यायालय ने कहा कि आप जहां गेहूं को, चावल को, धान को आप जहां स्टोर नहीं कर सकते, आप मुफ्त में बांटिए. बट द फनी पार्ट अबाउट दिस गवर्नमेंट इज दैट दे विल नॉट डिस्ट्रीब्यूट इट फ्री टू द पुअर, दे वुड रादर लेट इट रॉट. That's exactly what seems to be happening at the moment. And it won't be too long before the people get up and say, hey, listen, enough. We are not going to tolerate this anymore. We will not tolerate this anymore. And that, by the way, is coming. That is coming, absolutely. Right, Pradeep, thank you so much. Thank you very much.